number 14. 어디시다? 더 터진 직다고 당하죠. 더디 디리스트와 그래서 디 verse number 13 딜이야. 아니 윤림 범상 키와. 오케이. 윤림 범상 나버려야. 대비나 윤림 디 윤림 범상도 나라. 디디스트. 오, 단다. 그럼 디 망원에 지금 마단 디도. 디 제가 쇼로가 조송바디 아니 몽바 긴두 몽바 긴두지는 라자 인세지도 다디야 보셔도와 몽바 긴두 세지도와 디나로 디가사 쇼단 대비는 디나도 다지가 조금 뭐라고 조금 비기 조금 잡을 때다 쉽지 뉴스피 디체비나 인제 수만한다다 야나 다다비유사 몽보 긴두진남라스 아니 된지 점법에서 저 준주 제법을 계속 지금 시발하기 닌지 우원기 있어 시도 점배다 디를 갈 수고래 아주 세줘라 지금 위와티 아주 오토비까블이야 깨주 위와 어디를 세트래 휴몽 휴사 몽반남 더바 미토진 미도바 토도 바비 동에 다게 좀 버려주고 셰 매베다 어스 다디 카르 돌드나 단다디 몽보 긴두진 교조라 아니 라자 초도 교지 또 몽바디 카르 몽바르스나나 아니 깔레 마제베 주부대와 되거다 아니 하버도 아니 주 민게와 쪽체 주부대와 되ken기 아니 미디 땀 몽바긴도 진스 없더라 어디 잡고싶어.
So just going back to verse 13 in the root text, but then there's also in Shantidava's commentary on that verse, it talks about something being the kind of direct opposite of kind of ignorance, and it says that so the author of this text, the great Bodhisattva Shantideva, under the sway of compassion, the suffering which is mentioned in the root text, where it talks about in the last line of the 13th verse, where it says, "Oh no, I am overcome by misery," or overcome by suffering or misery, and the direct antidote under the sway of compassion. The author of this text, Shantideva, talks about the direct sort of antidote, or the direct sort of opposite of that ignorance, in terms of when that feeling of feeling. It says "oh no" in the English, but that doesn't really encompass what it says in Tibetan. It says "gihu," which is a kind of like letting out a kind of gasp, or it's something like "alas" or "woe is me," or something along those lines. So that feeling of kind of suffering or misery that occurs is what, when we talk about the antidote, Shantideva giving us the direct opposite of that ignorance. That what is the ignorance? It's the ignorance which has been mentioned above in the verse, where it talks about those who the ignorance of thinking that if you the ignorance of those who think that without making any tremendous effort, that somehow our desired results will arise, and also particularly that's the kind of general in a general way, but then in a particular way, that sense in which we, without any expectation of us needing to accumulate virtue, we can still achieve the results of happiness. So it's that particular overcoming, which is, and then through that causes us suffering, as the person thinks, oh, I'm overcome by misery when grasped by death. So it's the overcoming of that ignorance that particularly is talked about here.
Subject 가져다 주시버디 다 그거 주시버디인데 미 줄을 떼내서 동에 주 셔를 주디 치는 예가베 몽바 두수니마로스 딕선 주주로 I said a little bit and then yeah.
So I'll read it again. Relying upon the boat of the human body, free yourself from the great river of pain, as it is hard to find this boat again. As it is hard to find this boat again, there is no time for sleep, you fool.
나는 이렇게 지슈로데 녀리야 녀랑랑조 주신 개침부를 되게 맞아 보면라 봐 녀라 알아주 자주나를 요랬어 자주나를 요마세 아니 아주 팀로치고 요랬어 간이 지금 나를 팀도 요랬어 thinking 봐 디 차도 여비나 아니 알아주를 녀리야 주신이야 호주네 두자주네 아니 신의 주진을 appreciate 해야지 리그를 왔어. 다 단단 알아주를 강한 여바디 레다 녀모니기 방sha료지래 디 레다 녀모기 상황을 당샤바가 방교 말했어. 당 아주 가르치는 방글에서는 동행기 추다 동행이 되자. 디펜자는 아는 소소 디나로래야. 아니 팀주의가 지다. 되게 상황적인 거지. 현소나 나도 그렇게 좀 보게. 내년 상황적인세 고아들 되다. 자주 추세 잘고야 되더라. 어디는 신에 내가란 쪽이 밀디기 바란줄 톱에 미 루스리 수부디점도 줘. 남주들이셔. 정말은 수부디 수부디 개발스 개와. 또 미기 땅 남주들이셔. 남주 강을 된세 레버지. 다 레버딩 저기 땅아줄리 된세 고아들레 고와. 어제상가 딘리기 남주 유딩인기 말한주 풍부들라 truth. 가진스는 디캡투 유자 될 truth.
truth.
captu 유자 될 truth라 봐. 그래서 또 띵아주 개치슈디
So verse 14, I think we read before, but I think there's one important main point that comes out of this verse, and something to point out in the context of it, and that is that it mentions the relying upon the boat of the human body, but actually, before we talk about the boat at all, we have to sort of understand our situation in this analogy. And so so we have to understand that sense in which we don't understand, which we have to understand, is that sense in which we're kind of alone in the ocean, so to speak. And actually we're sort of sinking under the ocean. This is our condition. And so actually if there were any kind of boat at all that we were able to grasp onto, then we would appreciate it, whatever kind of boat it was, whether it was a kind of beautiful, strong boat, any form of sort of vessel that we could cling on to, we would appreciate. And in this analogy, then the water of the ocean is suffering, and we are sinking into this ocean of suffering. And of course, that situation is being caused by us being under the sway of karma and the mental afflictions. And so then we talk about so the boat is the human body, as it says in the first line of the translation, relying on the boat of the human body. So that's the boat in the analogy. But we don't just think of that in the sense of our physical body, which is to some extent not that important. We're thinking more of the kind of having a human born as in a kind of what they call a Dane, a human support. But that is particularly that we have a kind of critical faculties that we're able to. We have, our kind of brain and critical faculties that allow us to think about things. And this is, and so in that sense, the boat is described as as something which helps us to free ourselves from the river of pain, or the ocean of pain in this case. But that is also a kind of a place of refuge for us to have that kind of support. So that context also needs to be understood in relation to this verse.
So as Buddha himself, when he spoke about Four Noble Truths, then he said, know the suffering. That's what is the main kind of emphasis when he talk about dukkha. Like here, Shantideva, when he said, don't fall asleep. Now it is not the time to sleep, because you have found this amazing the human intelligence, namjit. So for there, don't waste the time. This is what he is trying to say. Before saying that, Shantideva put a boat and then the ocean. Ocean, the sea,
ocean.
Or the sea. So now it is really important for us, whenever when you want to push yourself to do the practice, Dharma practice. So it is really important that you should feel, I'm sinking. I'm sinking into the ocean of the suffering. So then if this is not coming, then all your kind of, you are trying to practice bodhicitta, emptiness, all those are sometimes giving you a bit of artificial artificial something fake happiness or kind of a joy for a moment. And then it does not have any kind of a strength to bring you to the, like, I really enjoyed today and I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I enjoyed the last month and I'm going to do it one more month. This is not going to come, because the way, our way of practicing, that does not have the strength to bring the next episode. It's because it's not catchy, because it's not something like something what we call it, when you are not a good director of yourself. If you are a good director, and then what they do is on the first episode, the first season, at the ending, if they really want to do the good business, then they will automatically give you this kind of suspense.
A cliffhanger.
What's that?
A cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger. Or the cliffhanger. So similarly, whatever we do practice, why we don't enjoy, or we have so many questions, even though you've been doing for many hours, or maybe you have been a Buddhist for such a long time, but always there is a question. I'm not really enjoying what I'm doing. Because yes, time to time you can ask that it's necessary. But then deep inside, the real thing why you're not really enjoying this medicine, because you don't think you really need it. And you have not recognized you are a patient. You have this kind of a sickness, or that you have this kind of suffering. So then whatever you do it is like you feel like it's optional. And once this is optional, and you will always think like, I can I can do it. Yeah, I do it. But you don't feel like I really need to do it. Because you feel like there's a kind of something, it's in your hand to do it. But now bring this kind of picture, you are sinking into the let's go back to the time of Titanic. And you're sinking, right? And then even the small iceberg, you feel you were lucky for a few minutes, few seconds to be alive, lucky enough. So now, how you should find Dharma? Here, Shantideva is teaching us. And then most important, this could be the one antidote for the laziness. Because all this laziness is a part of the attachment. And this is clinging to what you really like it. It does not, we don't have, most of the time, we don't have a thinking, I must do it. If I don't do this, I don't know that what is coming tomorrow. And I should really finish this. And I really need to achieve this before something terrible comes up. We never feel this. We feel so scared, so safe. So then we always forgot to do the preparation. Did it what? Was that? Didn't want to oh yeah, so now once this times, we say times fly, right? Time flies. What's that? Time flies. Time does not fly. It is a reality that it is a moment that it always goes continuously. So we should know how to go with the time. That's what the biggest thing is. We feel like it's in our nature that we always think like, I can do it tomorrow. There are so many things you can do this. Like you had a time to eat a delicious pizza in some restaurant, and then you can say, I will try it tomorrow, because this is not really important. For some people, it might be very important, but in general, it's not that important. But this kind of thing, that day-to-day life, because this kind of preparation is, once you feel like I'm sinking into this kind of suffering of the ocean, and then automatically you feel like there's no option left. Whatever you have it, intelligence, you are going to use this not to drown into this suffering again. And you will use all your energy to try to get out from that. So then, now for this really is important that both, or that kind of my intelligence, it's believing your own mind. It's not believing Buddha. It's not believing Dalai Lama. It's more important is believing yourself. That Buddha said, you are your protector now. So that's the one main reason, I think. So then once you feel like, I can do it. I can remove this obstacle. Buddha has taught me the path, shown the path to me. So now you try to, before or after receiving the teaching, then try to examine it. Then once you feel it, after the examination, after the examination, there is called experience. That experience is what we are talking about, is the practice or experience. This experience is the best practice. So once you have it, then now what you have to really do is make it more stable, more bring more kind of awareness and bringing the full attention. So that is the meditation. There could be two types of meditation. One type is a single-pointed meditation. One is called analytical meditation. It's not coming. Analytical meditation, sometimes more powerful than the single-pointed meditation. Single-pointed meditation, how long are you going to do it? That's a big question. For 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, come on, don't fool yourself. Not more than maybe 30 minutes, okay? So analytical meditation, you do kind of a experiment, and then full day, you can have this kind of awareness going in your head. Like you feel, my examination is not finished yet. That's the best part. What really makes you unhappy when the time of examination is, if the examination is for 1 month, so whole 1 month you are this simba simje you simje seju in
it's a way in which two different minds sort of interact with each other, so that one is held within the influence of the other.
Or the has the influence, the mind which has influence in your one brain side, it's day and night, it's giving you the signal, say, brother, your examination is not finished, so you cannot waste your time. So it's every time there. So once you check, after 1 month, I'm free now. So that kind of pleasure is there, right? So whole 1 month, it's like even you eat, even you sleep, you feel not fully satisfied what you're doing, because there is so much kind of influence of one mind called you're not done yet. So similarly, that one is just an example of how the influence can be. It's not because it sounds a little bit negative example. Now bring that in a positive way, because you feel I'm sinking, and now you see there is hope. That hope is the positive thing. So when we practice Dharma, many people, when we talk about suffering, and then many people has a complaint saying, I came here to enjoy Dharma, not to gain more suffering. But the worldly enjoyment, that you really don't need to learn from Buddha. What we really need from Buddha is one kind of a pleasure, that everlasting pleasure. And that kind of pleasure, that it will come once you get the right answer to the suffering of the samsara. So for that reason, it is, I think, very necessary for us to have this kind of influence of the day-to-day life, we need to have I call it the sinking into the samsara. We need this. And then once you see that your brain or that you are intelligent enough to buy that boat, right? Not to buy that because you already have it. So maybe
get some paddles, maybe.
You get some paddles there, and the paddles, or maybe polish it. Oh yeah, make it ready. So this is important. So then once it is more like you have the boat and you really don't know that you have the boat, and then you let your life sinking into the suffering, and then it's a really sad thing, isn't it? So this one is a beautiful way of showing the first noble truth. Yeah, noble truth, and then in there it has all the three truths in there, in this beautiful words. So then for that reason, saying to yourself, Mongba means the English na
it doesn't really, it just says there's no time for sleep, you fool.
Oh, you fool.
So
did it. You fool. It's not, Buddha is not calling you the fool. If somebody tells you fool, then you really don't like it. You call yourself fool, then you accept it, right? So feel this. This is a very good way of thinking. So you fool, you are going to waste your time. So don't waste your time. So because I have seen the hope, and that hope that if I couldn't approach towards it, or I cannot use this, then I'm the real fool, and I'm fooling myself. I'm not fooling the Buddha or my teacher, my parents. I'm fooling myself. That's a good one. Okay. Did you understand my English?
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay. That's your 15. Gewe juni tayebi tamju gewe chö pang ne dungin ju yi inwa tang go so la ju jichir gas.
Having rejected the supreme joy of the sacred Dharma, this is a boundless source of delight. Why am I distracted by the causes for pain? Why do I enjoy frivolous amusements and the like?
다 저와 년신기 ler로 세드려도 저와 년신기 ler로 인지기를 가지고 그래.
The laziness of being attached to kind of unwholesome activities.
Unwholesome activities. 가위 균이 타 예배 담주 가위 최 빵네스. 나 당분이 배 자침물에 디 가르쳤던 것도스나 가위 균이 타 예배 디송을 디송 고에 내가 가와토 그러나 완주 내가 야다 두니기 나로네 야디 이바 하 고신도 아니 두에 쳐라 도고에 가르스나 가와지기도 왔어 다들 대화지기도 왔어 내가 야다 두니요 봐 내가 두어도 야가 니게 나로라 아주 내가 야고 임바 두자 임바다 야고 임바 신기유나야 이내 두고 쳐라 파 주주도 왔어 디 주비가블야 아니 가르치니 저는 딜이야 두자 임바 하 고신도 단도 지기였으라나 안디 랜들이야 가와암 대화지기도 왔어 랜디마도 요 말이야 다 딜이야 제수 신부쇼라 가르송벌스나 가위 주라 타예베 아니 담주 개베 쳐방에 시도 가와기의 규디 담배추를 차상 독세 권해 봐. 계란 단다 대화 되게 차상 아니 유개와 담배추를 독스. 담배추를 독스. 아니 가르치니 다 지지 하면 봐. 동의 주 양화당 동의기의 주 아니 양화당 아니 거바당 아니 라소가 시류 잠베다 되메기 아니 양화치 붙이야 먹죠. 비지트럴 타임 온즈르디 가르친 교란 어느 가부치고 봤어. 교란 옵션 맵이나 이제 가르스 교란 가와단 대화 용역이 책 딜라이 대화 가라나 기도 용역 유 먹부지 담배 치워 그럼 독스 담배 치워서도 야 취해라도 완전야 라신기야 지금 취해서도 오나 취해서 선물도 막 거치 이 취해서 돼 대도와 가웨주 그런 취해서 어디 제비나 아니 가웨 대화치기 규데 아니 남이나 소직 상배톤을 주변 예신비간라 가르치니 아니 주 민기외 초려야 되저당네 그냥 가서로 가와두고요스 가와두고엠도스 근데 가와되기 아니 디워들 다 단들이도와 단들 계속 묻지 지금 한마디 교란 직다다 가오로 미리티스 동행이 주인 비치고 대칭도 집업에 사오요 가와 교란 가와기도 라고요 데 가와기리 말스 가르진스나 디 동행이 주로 봤어 어디 지금 제가 sonda.
And so here in verse 15, I think there's another very important example which is expressed here. And it sort of speaks to us in the sense that we have, that even though we may understand, the difference between positive or negative, good and bad kind of actions and activities, and even though we're able to identify which ones are kind of positive for ourselves and others, but still somehow we take some kind of special delight in engaging in kind of the negative side of activities. And so what the verse says to us is, you know the difference between these two, and why do you continue to continue to operate like this? And the answer we always give is that, or the only answer that we can really try to give is that because it's the cause of happiness, the cause of happiness, or the cause of joy for us. Even though we engage in these negative things, we feel that there's a kind of that's still in some way a kind of cause of joy or happiness for us. But it says, but what the verse says to us is, but all of those, you've got this a bit upside down, because all of the causes are not upside down, but the causes of this joy or supreme joy and happiness, about it says in the verse, in the translation, it says this boundless source of delight. Those are all contained within the Dharma teachings already. So you don't need to rely on these negative. You can rely on these in the Dharma teachings, which provide you with that joy and happiness that you seek, and the causes for it. And specifically, it sort of points out that the causes of that are positive, constructive, virtuous actions. And then in the verse it says, so then it's sort of, having got that established, then it sort of says, well, why am I distracted by the causes? So this is a kind of rhetorical question. Why am I distracted by the causes for pain? Why do I enjoy frivolous amusement? So this sense in which kind of distraction, where we get carried away to, why do we get carried away to the causes which bring us suffering? With distraction and inattention, engaging in things which have very little meaning. And if, so what the verse also says indirectly to us is, if you have no option, and you don't have an option, then okay, all right, there's no option. But here it's saying that the Dharma teachings offer you an option to get that joy and happiness that you're talking about without engaging in those things which you think bring that. And moreover, here, the Dharma, I mean, it's not specifically, you know, you may think, oh, Dharma teachings, oh, that means specifically the Buddhist teachings, but here it's also the specifically what is the teaching or what is the Dharma that is related to here. It's the cause of the happiness and joy that we're seeking. So so it's like you're you know, it's like saying to you that you're engaging in these negative activities, but you're not actually going to achieve the things that you desire. And in Gyaltsab Je's commentary, it actually gives a reason, a sort of kind of substantial reason why that is the case, where he says that it's not because so it says that these, but actually those things that you're engaging with, the distractions, the meaningless activities, etc., are not valid causes for they're not suitable causes for joy and happiness. They're actually the opposite. They're the causes for your own suffering. So you know, it kind of, so it's trying to sort of point us to that the Dharma holds all of those things for you. You don't need to rely on these negative ways.
당연히 디카도데 계산가 가와 계획이 아주델이야 아니 동해 계획이 민기비 처럼 만들어봐 아니 대화 강식 아니 계획 처럼 줘야기 아니 대화들 배주시 그랬어 대화 계획이 동해 계획 집에기 대화들 마템마치 다 대화만 가와서 들어봐다 당부 가와 정되는 대화를 쓰고 그러다 제장과 딘디기 대화 강시 아니 주 개와 개버 쳐버들 배주치 그랬어 달랍제 뒤균고 봐 알아요 뒤로와 달랍제 뒤로 봐다 뒤에 좀 배당 알아는 뒤 배는 예 답변은 corruption 손잡지 비즈니스 왔다 corruption 손잡지나 거기 우리도 겪고 싶지 갈리시다 jà 먹어 통 갈리시다 좀 먹어 통에 그 우리 간 겪고 사트에게 탑시디기 선로 뒤에 비차네 그봐 안고 corruption 치고 수인이 corruption 제거해 들어와 다 들려야 아니 단달랍제디 갸베나 그봐 아니 기회 준에 타예베 아니 담주가베 초반에 등이 주의 인화다 아니 그서라서 지시를 가스나 되게 지난주에 랭카르라도스 이그 또 판기도 버스니로 저거도 하고 좋아 아니요 제가 하고 있어요 오케이 디지털다
so in the verse here it talks about this kind of the happiness, or in the translation it uses the word delight and happiness, and what it's saying to us is to not rely on non-virtuous actions which you think are going to help you to derive that delight and happiness, but to look to the actual causes of this delight and happiness, which are the virtuous actions. And so it's sort of what it's implicitly doing is giving us is creating that link between acting in a virtuous way and then receiving or enjoying happiness and delight as a result of that. So it kind of makes that explicit link between those two. Now, perhaps a good way to give an example of this is in terms of corruption, because essentially the main reason for corruption, what people do it for is to very quickly, kind of without too much effort and very quickly to amass as much money as they can without the kind of necessary effort that we would normally take to do that. So that's kind of, that's the kind of motivation which is behind corruption. And so what would be the advice if we take this verse where it says, I'll read it again, Having rejected the supreme joy of the Dharma, this is the boundless source of delight. Why am I distracted by the causes for pain? Why do I enjoy frivolous amusements and the like? So taking what I've said about this verse, yeah, and also because it's also taking into account Gyaltsabje's kind of reason here, where he says it's not suitable to be a cause of joy and happiness. It's actually a cause of suffering. So taking those things all together, what is the, what would be the kind of corrupt media? So if you would, how does this verse speak to someone who thinks in that way of, a corrupted way, where they try to they engage in corruption in order to attain without too much effort and easily amass a fortune? So how does this verse speak to them?
So what do you think?
Speak to that kind of mindset.
Rinpoche.
Yes.
I'm Anil from London. Thank you for the teaching.
Just hold on. I'm going to put the volume up. Okay. Go ahead.
Partly my experience about the corruption is that I seek reputation, to be popular. This is the reason why often I do actions which I know hurt me, but I think will make me liked and popular. Reputation. This is a big problem for me. And then pride to ask for help. Yeah. This I just wondered if you could help me. Yeah.
The Kurangi Lavyadi reputation is
corruption
what did you say the second? Pride. Okay, the pride. The pride, the reputation,
so they go together. Pride
and did it. Maybe I speak directly. People who make the biggest news headlines are the people who are like celebrities, who has such a high reputation, and then somehow we see some kind of bad news about them. So they know it could become a problem in the future, but then they become so blind. So in your question, there is the answer. Before becoming blind, we should do something. Once you become blind, then you will not think about the reputation. Okay, you will think about the money. There will be nobody who wants to kill somebody in this world, but then somebody made him to do it because he lost his control, because he become blind. His greediness, because there's no limit. Right now, when people thinking about my pride, reputation, my family, those are some kind of layers before becoming blind. So that kind of awareness is very positive, very good. But then once this greediness comes up, this kind of the strength comes up, then it becomes no use. Even this code will not become any use. So what I really meant, why I bring this is this sort of a medicine is to be applied when the bruise is not very swollen up, or it's like a prevention. It's a prevention. So it already become a cancer, and then it's very hard to cure. So before, it is really important for the practitioners to see the link. This from here to here, I changed. Here to here, I'm changing. So now I have to act something or I will become this kind of person. So we need to picture this. Otherwise, right now you said sometimes it helps to think reputation and family and all this, but then most people have that kind of feeling, but they fail. They end up in somewhere they don't want to be because it went out of their hand, lost control. So that is your question, but also there is answer lying in your question. So
Thank you.
person who is corrupted, person who is very become very emotional, and then very into the attachment, very in anger, then there's not much of cure. And better to step back from that person. But before becoming blind, before becoming crazy, then what are the cure or the antidote? That's why Shantideva is giving us this. So there is so many variety to become happy without this kind of corruption. Why you are not going to do it? So then it's more like before coming up all this problem. So once person is so stick into this, it's like earn so much money, but I cannot earn this kind of money. This is a very quick money, and this is a golden opportunity. And then your mind become corrupted first. Then you act something that you regret. So we should know when to take the pills, the antidote on the right timing. So that's what I raised the question to you. Okay, now to the next one. 16. Da gilu bi nyembo la tamba se shidu. Gilu me dan pungso dan. Lulang dan ni wangcha dan. Da dan shendu nyemba dan. Da dan shendu jewa di.
Verse number 16. Without indulging in despondency, I should gather the support for enthusiasm and earnestly take control of myself. Then by seeing the equality between self and others, I should practice exchanging self for others. Maybe something like the laziness of being discouraged, or the laziness of discouragement.
Discouraged. So Rinpoche duwa tanje chawa nyen shingi lelo tang ta gilu wate. Ta chawa nyen shingi lelo nyen ka hu wa zo. Ta chawa nyen shingi lelo ka tsana shine ni gewa duwa la ta be parje ma so ne tsama chik yongda yongure de de shu chimbu ke yo ma re. Ta shibi ka lo ngone chue chibi ka le chigi lo gwebe chol pa to che wa. 고바 괴베 초를 파도지 차베 초를 도지 아니 가서 그래 뒤주 초라 땅에기 디네 타르버레데 다테네 개월 좀 되던데 아니 지 가서 그래 저만 손에 디어가 다 로shum바 shum바게바 길루바 다 길루바 세들와 다 개월 제벌이야 아니 다디 차려야면도 다 두고민도 아니 딱 야게 두고민도 세 딱 삼로망 슈춤을 지어봐 한 고랑 나신 아디 차금도 세야지 여봐 오 디주다 니버들이 다 딜레발라 딘데 딜레베 까블이야 아니 다 녀보 카드 땡 거래 세야지 다 단다시니 길루비 녀보디 녀보된다도 라부도와 어디지는 듣는다
So in terms of this the sort of this verse and the section in the text now, it's discussing this kind of this third kind of laziness, which is laziness of kind of being discouraged or despondent about particularly about oneself and one's abilities. So kind of discouraged with oneself. And also when we talk about the different kinds of laziness, then we have to think of them as coming in stages. So, just in the previous verse, it discusses the laziness, the antidotes, and the laziness of attachment or engagement in negative or unconstructive actions, and the antidotes and suggest advice to abandon that. And so, as it proceeds in stages, if we can work out, try to get rid of the attachment, the laziness of attachment to negative actions, then if we can sort of remove that a lot from our lives, then that creates a much more obstacle-free path forward for us to engage in the Dharma. But there's still, so that sort of being carried away by distraction and attachment, and therefore spending a lot of our time, wasting a lot of our time on constructive things. So so that if you can sort of get that out of the way, but then there's a sort of next sort of stage, which is that the sort of then taking that more in a positive way and thinking about engaging in virtuous actions. But then it's very easy for us to become despondent or discouraged about practicing and achieving, sort of having success. So we feel that we don't have the qualities, we don't have the ability to be able to achieve these aspects of the Dharma, and we don't have that sense of which we feel that everyone else seems to be improving, or I'm not improving, I'm just practicing and just not getting any better. So there's kind of many forms in which this kind of discouragement comes. And so from this verse and some verses after this, it describes how that arises, and then also what are the antidotes in order to counteract that form of laziness. So in Gyaltsabje's, I'll read from in the group there's a translation, a complete translation of Gyaltsabje's commentary on the root text. So I'll just read from that so that it fits together. So in Gyaltsabje's commentary, he gives an example, which is that where he says that kings, it's an analogy where it says kings conquer their enemies with the 4 types of armies. So that's the analogy that's brought up.
Vision di sungu yusare. Gonesa and Dali Javar Chavas Sech. Tapena Chushi di warden and dinner near Treasure Chavina. That Kaju Chanju Penamar Jabalaya. Any di Kasore Sing Devils. The Kajansana. Also did Chiran to die because that lot of the rings says that. And a brave heart says that. Zotaiba, I did not roll ya the catchy shifty, any mommy you knew of the chair, and Pajong or the daddy man go to the chair, and she wants to go.
She wants to go,
yeah. Jizang Korang Shingi Sim de Ma Shumche.
Yeah.
And it Martin de Mel Chagua. That Dilia Tapship. Can you someone open the door for her? Her Majesty wants to go.
Gilmo.
Okay. Yeah. You can leave the door open. Thank you. That do some bit dinner roll ya catch you should the role dinan chishu 가르쳤으나 아니 막wen디기 아니 비게 가서래 샘싱 때야 되다 아주 유명한 개요 말았어 아 다른 안주다 지금 메리다 아니 부부다 개면다 아니 또 정말 깨비하게 된다고 마치나 아니 지진이네 세제 조세제는 아주 때문에 당해줘 부르지 라한테 직직도 와 그래서 몸이 저기 개개 슈치르치르 해지 등도 와 디나시스 디나신기 디나로리아 샘싱 또 제스 와 다 딜이야 심단단들 가르스나 또 와들이야 람랍 람랍 라발라 삼바 딜루가 메버 거제 주주시 거자 다 거제 그래서 주주들이 뭔지 저희 봐요 대선 단대 거제 주주시 거제스 가수지기 아니 가서 그래 개 간대 주요비 있나야 디기 네 두자들은 이게 도마르시지 근데 이제대로 와다
아니요.
그래봐 세상가 다디 중보이나 아니 거제 주주시지 아니 다 되네 주주니 받을래 와 있으래 다 되네 저레스도 다 저와 소사 디중으로 소바 제비값라 드셔 배우치 아전스 놓고 소남 초비 잡되면은 항아 저기 가지고 이시야 아니 남주다 아니 메디기 전당 같이 주연나야 그래봐 소남 초비 잡되면은 되다 죽고 와 제정아들이 저를 준주시대 저봐 다 되네 아니 운시값도 다 개치셔야 운시값도 아니 전바다 시신 냠살라마 치고 그랬어 다 주름의 중숨 세지도 와 운시값도 다 예벌도 다 얘한테 나오는 시디 전바 디나로 전바스도 와대 전바다 시신 세대 이것을 전바다 시신 세도 곰 예비값을 깨지면 제 곰스도 싱글 본드 메디테이션 가 매비체 개치셔도 아니 Analytical Meditation 가봐 있나요? 아니 샘싱 때고 여와 이때야디 Analytical Meditation 제마도 지기 싱글 본드 되게 말해. 이 인도tambe 디 때단들이야. 아니 내버도 무시디 값소 아니 참바다 시신디 아니 따다 내가 제대로 해주고 그랬어. 다들이 중보이나 제네스 다 두스 저지디하고 중토비이나 아니 월스 다다 둠바와 리우둠바 다 리우제바 something 리우 값소 아니 다다 신 냠바쳐봐다 다신 제버치 아니 삼로 디간다 신이 레트쿠르스 제산타 디 힌디 마소나 가르땅 디고르슬라나 디보루델 심슈 차고 다신 냠바다 제버 녀한데발라 아니 저기 말하는 저기 다 chanju semna lo jangu yorwa di jambe kabya ani maranju gi dunje menga dundo shashana ene marshe ba chen ba tin so ko do di bedi jo chagre ro da tin so ko se tune ga maranga ju 정말 ro be kal ka shode tin samya di kalem do wa tin sabe kal ka shode tin so se de wa 되네 가르치는 되네 봐도니 이게 학상 받을래야 할다 빽깔려다 말아랑이 최고 세계 삼로 싸우는 데 말에 다 우드리질레 나서다 다 디파도 말레 파도리아 셈냠야기 아니 까니 셈슈미야 디루바세 리기 여자 아니 예바도 단다 준주 니스치도와 고제 준주 저베 준주 아니다 아니 전바디 시신기 아니 딱 툴렘바스 툴렘비 주르스는 되게 툴렌치도 와 어디데 주르숨디 양내 양도 단다 리우 단다 투버 봐 투버 말해 봐 준비 값수 아니 냐바도 고고 그랬어
Here I think it says in the where it talked about the the kings conquer their enemies with the 4 types of army. I think there's a I think there's a sutra where where I think the Buddha teaches the king 4 ways of 4 kinds of, he gives 4 different kinds of advice to the king. So I think that may be where this comes from. So this whole verse is sort of verse 16 here, and where it talks about the analogy of the it uses this analogy of the armies, and when fighting a war. So you've all seen many kind of movies like Lord of the Rings and Braveheart and all these many kind of stories of great battles, where often there's a small number of a small group who are completely outnumbered by their enemies, and of course at that time their kind of hearts and courage can drop, because of the vast armies which are facing them, and then the general kind of stands up and this is because Sengdu is in the word in Tibetan is Sengdu, is to kind of lift up, or how to say, I had a better word, sort of to really encourage and inspire, or kind of lift up the hearts of the soldiers, and say, we're only a small number of people, but we're fighting for our families and our land and our children and our families, our land and our children, and then they give some advice, some sort of sort of way to lift up the hearts and the courage of the small number of warriors, and then they all kind of, there's a great roar, and then they charge off into battle. So it's sort of so that's the analogy. How in the sense would we do that when we're talking about our being discouraged in terms of our Dharma practice? And there in Gyaltso commentary, he talks about the which we've studied earlier in the 6th chapter on the kind of joyous effort, where it says, so I'll read the lines because Rinpoche read them directly. It says, similarly, so these are the methods, the ways in which we lift up our hearts to be able to kind of face our practice. So it says, similarly, bodhisattvas initially lift up their minds and generate the armor-like enthusiasm, free from despondency, that intends to train in the path. So there's this first one, there's kind of armor-like enthusiasm, in the sense of whichever the armor protects us, so that whatever comes at us, whatever we will have to face, we have this kind of sense of, a little bit kind of sense of courage and resilience, and to that it will not be able to stop us. And so so we take that one, which is sort of that sort of the kind of courage of the armor of this joyous effort, which says that nothing can kind of stop us. That's a kind of, and then you have the second one in the text. It reads, then they generate the enthusiasm of application, or essentially that's like putting into practice, that builds up the army of the 2 accumulations as a preparation. So it's in a sense, that's actually the way I would put it, is actually more like the kind of the Nishida, the Nibadigi, joy. Yeah, it is to accumulate virtue, to purify our negativities and to accumulate virtue. That would be the so accumulate the 2 accumulations of merit and wisdom, and to purify our the stains of our negative actions. That would be the second joyous effort of application, or it's essentially like put it into practice. And then so we often in the Buddhist text, we also talk about the kind of joy, the kind of preparation, nushi, the actual actions, and then the kind of the sort of the at the end, just sort of tying everything up at the end. So here we have the kind of preparation of the enthusiasm of application, and then the actual practice here, as Gyaltso puts it, is to practice introspection and mindfulness, and thus gain control over ourselves, our body and mind, which becomes serviceable. So the actual practice here is using mindfulness and the kind of mental introspection or vigilance, as it's often called. And this not just for single point, not just, I don't want you to think about this as just using those to create a kind of single pointedly focus on things, but also in the context of when we analytically, when we're also sort of, analyzing, kind of checking, and at that time also using mindfulness and vigilance, mental introspection to help us to again lift up the mind. And so this is like the kind of actual practice of using those to help us to lift up the mind. And then, so these are also like, this is also connected, is connected also in the text a little bit to the 8th chapter, where we talk, Shantideva gives us the methods for equalizing and exchanging self and others. And these are kind of what we're discussing here are also things which can very much help us, the kind of, joyous effort or whatever is, and the joyous effort here can be brought into our practice later on, where in the 8th chapter, Shantideva talks about, this, for instance, he talks about generating bodhicitta, but, there are 2 methods of generating bodhicitta, one through the 7-point cause and effect, or one through the exchange of self and others. If we take the 7-point cause and effect instruction on generating bodhicitta, then, identifying all sentient beings as our mother, thinking about the kindness that they've shown us, and then wishing to repay the kindness. But as soon as we get through, even if we get through the first 2, by the time we get to repaying the kindness, actually we're kind of done. It's like this is actually a very, I think this is the hardest point in that. It's quite easy to, it could be considered quite easy to recognize beings as being our mothers, and understanding that kind of that debt of gratitude or kindness to them. But when it comes to repaying them, and then also, from that step up to the generation of the kind of special altruistic intent, I think these are extremely difficult points in that, in when we're talking about bodhicitta, the mind, the awakening mind. And it's very easy for the mind to become discouraged at this time. So using these different kinds of, like the armor-like joyous effort, the applied joyous effort, and then using mindfulness and vigilance, then it can really help us to, to help us to lift ourselves up and proceed on the path, especially in times like that when we're having trouble repaying the kindness.
Okay.
And then she said again and again. So this is again and again. This is we're going to use this, and this comes up again and again in the 7th chapter. So it's a very kind of central point.
Okay. The education, please.
Having thoroughly investigated in accord with all that I've heard day and night through the 4 reasonings, mind born of reflection on these topics of contemplation, may this discernment sever all doubts. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you're the source of all happiness and good. All powerful, generous, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma. By completing the qualities of the grounds and paths, may I quickly attain a state of Vajradhara. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Live long.